All right, welcome into the Noll Road. The Steelers defense absolutely balled out in Dublin. How much do you trust them going into week 6 against the Browns? Is this a good defense or just an opportunistic one? Leave a comment down below. Plus, Roman Wilson's season apparently canceled, and he's talking about it. Seems frustrated. What's the best way for the Steelers to handle this from here? We'll look at all the other Steelers news as well as we head into the weekend here on the Noll Road. Here we go.
Van to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
Yeah, buddy, I'm Gavin Dawson along with New Bear Lesnewski. Hit that like and subscribe if you want Steelers content 3-4 times a week. That is absolutely massive for us. You've done a great job this week hitting both those buttons, and we salute you for it. Cold beer's coming up.
Over 800.
What's that? We're over 800 now. I love it. Need to get to 4 digits. And, of course, the Steelers looking to get to win number 4. And just after just one game where the defense played better on a per-play basis, not depending on the big plays to shut teams down, New Bear, they're getting ready to take on the Cleveland Browns. I don't know if you're going to get a great litmus test against Dylan Gabriel and this Browns team that's really got nothing going at wide receiver, some decent tight end play, obviously a good running game. But hopefully the Browns don't come out here and light these Steelers up. I mean, things have gone well since the failures early. I mean, Derek Harmon, Cam Hayward, Deshaun Elliott, all these guys getting healthy, playing better, debuting, whatever it is. I think playing Cole Holcomb more helped. And, I mean, they are great at takeaways and pressures. I just don't know how reliable that is, and I don't think that's a good winning postseason formula when you start coming up against these better quarterbacks and better ball security. So, I mean, I got palms up. I don't know. How good is the Steelers defense? Tell me something about it.
Well, I think everyone's a little bit concerned that Tomlin's going to Tomlin, and look over there at Juan Thornhill in a guy playing against his former team saying he's going to be so geeked up, we're going to get a Hall of Fame performance. And then all of a sudden you got Dylan Gabriel going Judkins play action to Jerry Jeudy over everyone's heads. Like, there's a lot of, how do you lose this game, or how do you find a way to bleep around and find out? And look, man, I mean, Jerry Jeudy's a legit talent. He has a little bit of an issue with, I think some quarterbacks have had issue with maybe trusting that he's going to run the route that's called because he's so wiggly and he just wants to get open. And then also he's had intermittent cases of the dropsies. But in terms of like just dudes who can get open when they want to, he's up there with the best. And then don't forget, you know who's listed as a starter. He hasn't really had a chance to break out yet, but quietly, because Judkins was really in the headlines with his off-field stuff. Isaiah Bond is there now. So, I mean, there's some dudes who can go, and they're actually, their depth chart, their starting depth chart is listing a left and a right tight end. Fannin is really making a name for himself. Everyone obviously knows Njoku. There's guys, there's dudes. The question is the guy who's pulling the trigger and if he can get it to you.
Yeah, and I think as you specifically look at that Cleveland Browns matchup, there's ways to win. It's the NFL. Jerry Jones said it today. This league is designed in multiple ways for teams to be 50-50, and they got to do something special to get out, whether that's spending, coaching, drafting, and any team can beat anybody at any time. I mean, hell, Cleveland beat Green Bay a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know if the Packers are Super Bowl bound or anything like that, but they have enough dudes to do it, especially against this defense that got freaking lit up against the Jets week 1. 32 points there, 31 against Seattle. New England should have scored at least 35, maybe 45 points against the Steelers. Minnesota was good. But as I told you that week several times, it's Carson Wentz. He sucks. Look at some of these stats, man. There's some horrible. Now, this is just through a quarter of the season, but only the Cowboys, Jets, and Bears are giving up more yards per target to wide receivers than the Steelers. They have takeaways on 22.5% of their opponents' possessions, and that's leading the league or second best. But what does it all equal out to? You know, what's the end of that equation when you add up really a bad per play efficiency, getting run all over for a lot of the season, and being able to bail yourself out with takeaways.
Yeah, and not just per play, per drive in totality. They are right up there as one of the worst number of plays, number of yards, points per drive type stuff. And there's plenty of nits to pick as you go through, the beginning of the year with the missed tackles, with blown coverages, with some of the stuff that the data points, the raw data, they're going to be better in because they've played one less game than everyone. So you got to really look at the percentages. And then I just kind of take a step back and I go, well, TJ was kind of out there by himself, right? Like they were just running away from him, double and triple teaming him, not letting him be able to make plays. Why? Cam wasn't in shape. Harmon was hurt. Herbig hadn't broken out. Highsmith gets hurt. This is the first week that up front, everybody that you want out there and thus everything you can do with them as chess pieces really exists. And there's some moxie, there's some mojo with Queen and Wilson. The problem is Ramsey's hamstring. The problem is who's playing safety. The problem is JPJ's back. How's his hammy going to look? How many plays is he going to play? Because they were talking about holding him out till after the bye so that once he was deemed right, he would stay right. We all know how quickly hamstrings can make you wrong.
Yeah. The Eagles were so bad on Thursday night, man. I think that's like a good lens to look at this story through. Even the best laid plans can go tits up in this league in a hurry. Even 8 months after winning the Super Bowl and looking like nobody could beat you, right? And we saw it early in the season how Philadelphia was sort of on thin ice with their inability to generate offense. They were leading the league in 3 and outs, even though they were 4-0 in the season. And now it started to come unraveled. So I do think there's a possibility that, sometimes it just doesn't come together, or you get a little long in the tooth at the wrong time, or, offenses kind of get a beat on how you like to defend. So I guess that would be why I would look at the season and the Steelers on paper and saying, wow, hey, what are you complaining about, Dawson? They're 3-1. They got all these great players. We've been talking all off season about how this is a Super Bowl level defense. I just think that until the games play and you get, I don't know, 8-10 games in, some people think around Thanksgiving where things begin to crystallize, you don't know who they are. And it's unfortunate, but especially when you go out and over the course of a month of a season demonstrate how beatable you are. I need some convincing on this Steelers D.
Well, the good news is these other teams, and my goodness, you were talking about, remember last year, the Super Bowl, when they looked unbeatable. How about the first 2 plays Thursday night? I mean, Saquon had 30 yards. He steps off the field, and all of a sudden it turns into a dogfight that gets away from them because, quite frankly, the Giants had more dog in them last night. And I was trying to take advantage of that, joking about Jackson Dart, because, I mean, it's hard not to root for that kid with Scattaboo. And what the reason I'm talking about the Giants right now is because of Mojo. I can't talk about Mojo and then not talk about last night's game and think about, folks talking about them winning with street free agents, little Jordan Humphrey and stuff like that, right? Like, yeah, that's true. But what's the difference? You got a guy who's got magic in his feet, who can run around and make plays, but also who doesn't know any better. He's not afraid to put the ball in harm's way. And when you run into that, Dylan Gabriel is not Jackson Dart, but he can move around a little bit. He's accurate as hell. He's played a ton of. He was in college for like 20 years. Like, he's played a ton of snaps, and he's one of those dudes where if he plays within himself, and I don't think he completed a pass over 10 yards until the game was out of reach. And that was one of the things that Joe Hayden and some of the guys in Cleveland were talking about this week, where he was 19 of 33, but he was 0 for anything that, was really going to push the ball down the field. So a lot of the same kind of conversations about Aaron Rodgers, right? Even the DK Metcalf, quote unquote, long ball is an 80-yard catch and run. It wasn't a 30, 40-yard, 50-yard throw that he finished off getting behind someone. So when you talk about this team, the Steelers, I think it's like 6.9 right at 7 plays and like 38, 39 yards a drive, 3 minutes and giving up 2.3 points per drive I think those are the numbers for them on a per drive basis. And those are like second vying for first or seventh vying for top 5 from start to finish worst. So if you get into a death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of mode and you allow him to be a little bit surgical, him meaning Dylan Gabriel, and guys like Judy and Njoku, right, make some plays, then it's going to come down to potentially that peanut punch. It's going to come down to potentially, if this isn't a rock fight and it gets up and down a little bit, let's not forget the Steelers are giving up 25 points a game. And however good they played until there was 7 minutes left in Ireland, they blew that coverage. And sometimes that's all it takes. You blow one, and that's how a team goes 99 yards on your ass when you think the game's already won.
Yeah, it really is just a handful of plays. And I think you're smart to bring up, what the Browns can do at tight end with Njoku and some of their other guys. They run 12 a lot.
Yeah.
I saw a stat from Matt Williamson that the Steelers defense ranks 31st versus 12 personnel. I mean, they rank between 28th and 32nd in a lot of these stats. So it's still very early in the season, and I think maybe we both need some convincing, but it is great to know that they have that big play ability to bail them out. Their sacks, their turnovers, their pressure rate. It's all, what you would expect. But that's about the only thing so far that is coming as we've expected here with the Steelers defense. I don't know if it's going to get them in trouble against Cleveland, but we didn't set out on this journey to beat the Cleveland Browns.
Right.
This is about proving you're good enough to win in January.
This has got to be a no questions asked kind of week. I mean, I have horror film on my mind thinking about Jameis Winston doing Snow Angels. Yeah. And and it just
this or COVID playoffs, I think that's still leaving a lot of bad taste in people's mouths.
For sure. And Baker Mayfield has acquitted himself well post Cleveland malaise, and as you go through this week where they're clapping about that weekend and the snow globe game just last year, and you go through, I mean, look, dude, Stefanski has been coach of the year. Tommy Rees is a really, really, really smart OC, and they've got, particularly in the backfield, Judkins is a stud, and I was pissed when he left Ole Miss and went to Ohio State. He is an absolute stud, and more than that, he's a team player. He was a guy who was willing to share the backfield with TreVeyon Henderson because all he wanted to do was win. And then he was out there blocking and running people over, looking like an old Nebraska fullback. And what's really interesting about the Browns is just like they drafted 400 quarterbacks, they also took Dylan Sampson in the 4th round. So they got Judkins in the 2nd, and they picked up Dylan Sampson, who was actually the SEC's best running back, and a guy that I was hoping maybe if they didn't pull the trigger on a guy like Caleb, I almost forgot his name because he hasn't played. Dylan Sampson was a guy that I would have liked to see in black and gold, and similar to like a Kenny Gainwell or some of the Trey Sermon, those guys who can get in and out and do a lot of different things. Well, who's in between them? Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford looked like he was going to be RB1 the way he finished last year after Chubb went down, right? So they have 3 really interesting running backs, and what I'm interested to see is if you get Judkins going downhill, specifically toward how you're going to affect this defense, and Tomlin wants to play 1 and 3 and be aggressive and do matchup type stuff and fire blitz and maybe even drop TJ and try to trick them, or do some different stuff where you're marrying what's happening up front to what's happening on the back end, where you see TJ, poke one out and get a pick right there at the line of scrimmage. But how does that change if you're playing with Queen and Peyton Wilson's eyes, because they get one or more of these backs going at the same time?
Yeah, and there's definitely a path to defeat there, and I think it definitely starts with Judkins, and it starts with a great defense. The Steelers could lose because we're not sure if their defense can slow down Dylan Gabriel in a good running game, which is insane, and we aren't sure if the Steelers can score enough. That being said, they are 5.5-point favorites. The Noll Road brought to you by Bet Online, up to $250 in free bets if you use the link in the description right now. Sportsbook, casino, racebook, they got it all, and the fastest payouts guaranteed with Bet Online. But we've seen Calvin Austin be pretty dang big, and could have been even bigger if things had come together just a little bit differently. But at least one game-winning catch to take him out now versus the Browns, which is the Friday injury report clarification. Jalen Ramsey, a full participant. He is questionable. Highsmith, Porter, Warren back. But, all of that is sitting out there along with the report now that Scotty Miller is going to start over Roman Wilson on Sunday. And I know that's frustrating for a lot of fans and for you, New Bear, as well. I like to tease you about Roman Wilson, but the facts are the coach and the quarterback don't trust him or he'd be in the game.
Well, this is what I don't understand. Like, Scotty Miller's a nice player. He's a very legitimate, NFL receiver, but he's like the fifth guy in a 5-man room fighting to get a helmet on game day, not wide receiver 2. That's the thing that bothers me about this. Either play Ben Skowronek and go 12-13 and just be real nasty, or figure out what you're going to do before the trade deadline. Because if you're right, and that has to be what it is, and I don't know why. I do not understand what they're so afraid of or what they're seeing when he is going up and making plays, and Aaron Rodgers is talking about building that trust in Latrobe and how this guy has all the potential in the world and he's just waiting to break out. And not only do you not give him the opportunity, but you go sign guys. And don't get me wrong, Scotty Miller's made big plays in big games. He's a big-time player, but he's not a dude that's going to play 1,000 snaps and catch 80 balls and be your wide receiver 2. Skowronek isn't easy either, but at least you can stomach Skowronek because he's 6'4", 225. He plays like a tight end. He loves doing the dirty stuff. And then you reward him with a little shallow and no one expects it, and he's able to pay that off by hitting pay dirt. So I question, and I will continue to do so until November 4th at 4 p.m., what the hell they're doing if they're not going to play Roman Wilson.
Yeah, and I think the trade is the most obvious thing, and we've done a lot of coverage on it. I expect the Steelers to trade for somebody. I don't know if that's Xavier Legette or Rashid Shaheed or somebody significantly better. You can, watch the shows that we did last night about this, and we'll go ahead and throw it up here on screen for you so you can find that easily, both now and then at the end of the video as well. But I think it has to go now to Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, because they are your most talented players that can help you remedy this. And I hope coming out of the bye, they have a plan. The plan should include the jumbo package with the extra offensive linemen in Washington, especially this week against Myles Garrett. That should definitely be in the playbook. But I want to see evidence that Arthur Smith looked at this problem and found a solution with the Pro Bowl mother bleeping talented players that are sitting on his hot damn roster. How about that?
Yeah, well, because not only you said most talented, they're also the most expensive. And that's the thing that is always fascinating about the hierarchy of Steelers versus the rest of the league, because Tomlin wants to live in a world where he talks about, the best player, the guy who's producing. It doesn't matter what school you're from, what round you were picked in, if you were picked at all. And if you're playing and you're making plays, I mean, think about where Antonio Brown came from before he started doing things that even Jerry Rice didn't do. Like, they don't care. If you show up and make plays, they'll play you. And that's different than a lot of teams who give a first-round pick every opportunity, give the guy, the big-time free agent, every opportunity, because you want to justify your ego, you want to justify your instinct, you want to justify the money that you're spending or the draft capital that you spent. And I just look at the litany of dudes who they've taken in the second and third round, and they're just not paying off, right? So if you're not able to do that, and there are several positions where that's been the case. Everyone talks about corner and the struggles they've had there. Artie Burns is the poster child for the failed, corners. And Joey Porter Jr. has been trending in the wrong direction, like he was going to be another person added to that list. He was pretty good as a rookie, and then he's gotten progressively worse ever since. And he's still handsy, penalties, and too many burnt toast type things, right? So as we unpack this and we think about the way they do business, I'm all for the blue collar. I'm all for the Steelers way. I'm all for, a team coming together and gelling and the sum of its parts being better than anything that is individual or isolated or, looking at it in a vacuum. But you can't look at this thing in totality and say on that side of the ball that they got enough.
No, they definitely don't. They need to make a trade, and they need to find a way to make more with less until then. And as the season goes on, one of the most frustrating things is watching what happened with the Cowboys when they bring in Clayton Adams, the offensive coordinator from the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals went from one of the best running teams in the NFL to the worst. Dak Prescott went from being a sometimes Pro Bowl quarterback to looking truly elite. And the reason for that is you're keeping the defense guessing. What kind of run scheme are we running? And are we running or are we passing? And you marry the run with the pass in a way that creates this little hesitation from the defensive players in the front. They don't know what they should commit to and what they can trust, what they can't trust. And, I just don't think Arthur Smith is in that game. And watching up close how profound of an impact that it's had on struggling offensive linemen, suddenly a guy who's getting blown by and giving up high pressure rates, those pressures aren't equaling quarterback hits and sacks.
You're talking about Dallas.
Yes. And it applies to Pittsburgh in a massive way as well, though, because Pittsburgh's tackles aren't great either, right?
I just wanted to make sure that the people didn't think you were saying Pittsburgh's O-line and their O-line coach were playing well and doing a good job.
No. I'm just pointing out, and maybe I'm taking too long to do it and belaboring this point a little bit, but how much better the Cowboys offense is operating, and it's much greater than the sum of its parts, and it has never been that way around the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott has never appeared to be this good, and I strongly feel like Arthur Smith is just not in that game. So I don't feel like the Steelers passing game really has a chance to start connecting until the run game is great. And the run game isn't going to be great until your offense can beat the shit out of the defensive line.
Sure.
They're not going to do it with scheme.
Sure. And they're talking about beating the shit out of people. They're saying that's why Freiermuth isn't playing, because he's not a good enough inline blocker. And it's like, okay, well, neither is Jonnu Smith. So either move one of them or figure out a way to dictate their talent to the other team, because you're going to play Washington. He can't just be a blocker. You got to throw him the ball. And they've done that some. And it's not like he has to be an 8 target a game guy. Even just hitting him once or twice and breaking the defense's back is all it takes. It's the same thing with Muth. Like, none of these guys, not even Jonnu, not even at his number and not even with all of his hype, not even Jonnu coming off an 88 catch season where I told everybody that was like a third of his career catches. Like, everyone talked about his relationship with Arthur Smith. Go look at the numbers. Like, it wasn't like he was doing crazy stuff. The things that he did were crazy, like playing running back and ripping off long runs, but he wasn't doing it at volume. He wasn't doing it week in and week out. And last year, Tyreek Hill was up and down. Jalen Waddle was up and down. So he becomes the and again, it was like 10 yards a catch, 11 yards a catch. It wasn't like he was coming in here as some, seam stretching Antonio Gates or young Travis Kelce or whoever your favorite, tight end du jour, over the past 2 decades has been. When you look at the way it's structured, that's probably the point that I talked about too much just a minute ago without paying off, is because of what you're paying Jonnu and because of what you're paying Freiermuth. It is astounding to me that they are not finding ways to force feed those two guys.
It absolutely is. And I hope that, the first 4 weeks of the season and then the bye gave them an early opportunity to self-scout, self-evaluate harder and dig deeper to try to find, something that can make them a little bit more consistent, because as we'll move along here in the Noll Road, I thought this was a great point by Bryant McFadden. And I'm not going to hit this story because then we'll have to go into the Steelers Depot website and it might crash our stream. But I thought he had a good point. If you got to handle business against Cleveland, Cincinnati, this is the litmus test for exactly what we've been talking about. Like, are you good enough to convincingly do it, with the caveat that it's the NFL and anything can happen. And if you lose one of these games, it doesn't mean anything. But if you really want to start convincing folks, like Tomlin's 14-4 coming out of the bye, he's the best 1-score game coach in the league throughout his tenure. So can you do something more convincing than that? to show us that the offense and defense is becoming efficient.
He's also 26-6 against rookie QBs, but then you throw that up and you go, well, I mean, okay, what of these stats matter? Because you're about to go play for 12 straight weeks, and there's going to be attrition. There is going to be a week where half your damn team doesn't even play, and you need to be able to be okay with that because you've handled business right now to get to 5-1 while these other teams are falling apart around you. It's not even about the North, it's about the AFC, because what you don't want to do is bleep around and the Chiefs figure it out, and now all of a sudden you stumble like you did just a season ago, and you got to go into Arrowhead and you got to go win on the road.
Yeah, this is huge. Lamar Jackson's not playing against the Rams. They're going to go to 1-5. Get to 5-1 here in less than a week. In less than a week, you should be 5-1. Okay, while we're on Mike Tomlin, win probability lost per game by coaching scared on 4th down. Holy crap! As Zach Taylor has been the king of this for a long time with the Bengals. This is big. They are 20. Mike Tomlin is 25% worse than Zach Taylor right now,
which is it's unfathomable. Zach Taylor is such a fascinating coach because their defense is so bad, and he's got Joe Burrow, Higgins, Chase Brown, like all these guys, right?
Yeah.
And to have that and have your defense be that bad and still be number 2, but then when you go, wait a minute, Tomlin's 25% worse than that. Like, I don't care what you decide to do because the probability of a team going 99 yards, either kick the field goal or throw the ball in the end zone. Like the difference between the 1 yard line and the 3 yard line, the 5 yard line, whatever in Ireland, that boggled my mind. But then, okay, so you made that decision and it backfired. It blew up in your face, and Peyton Wilson saved the day. And here you are with the ball. What they need? Like 18 inches to get a first down?
I don't know. I thought it was 4th and 4 around midfield when they punted.
Like, just
bring it up real quick.
Bleep and go for it and get the first down and just take everything away. It's like when people talk about a running back taking a knee when the other team's trying to let you score. If you get to a point where you have an opportunity to do one thing and make one play and the game is over, you can't fumble a snap, right? A kicker or a holder or a special teams guy, the last guy on the roster can't trip and miss a tackle. Like nothing can happen because the clock runs out. And you don't do that because you have $198 million defense. I just can't.
Yeah, you were right. It was 4th and 1.
Yeah.
That is and you were at Minnesota's 40.
Right.
So what'd you gain? 20 yards?
Right. And then he punted it into the end zone, and they did that on purpose. They did it. Yeah. It was 19 yards, I think, of field position because they just had him crush it out of the end zone. Like that's the thing is like if you come out and you go, hey, no, we got one of the best punters in the league. We're gonna coffin corner this thing. We're gonna pin him at the 6. Bro, they hit it into the stands. Like it was bad.
All righty. A couple more things here on the Noll Road as we wrap this bad boy up. Let me share this screen. That's not what I intended to have, but I can tell you they're talking about the heavy personnel here. He likes it against 4-3 teams with a good end. But the Steelers had Spencer Anderson and Darnell Washington on the field together with both as tight ends for 16 plays against the Vikings. The gross yards on those 16 plays, 93 yards, 5.8 a play. 13 of those were running plays, and they were very efficient running plays. So I think that's pretty good innovation. That's old school smash mouth innovation that I appreciate from Arthur Smith, but we need more motion. We need more deception. We need more, pin and pull type designs. And I think they did run more gap blocking schemes in this Minnesota game as well. But it's really, the ability to play games with the defender's mind that I think I don't know why it doesn't click for some of these coaches. And then you can get into play action as well. And I think only 3 or 4 teams run play action less than the Green Bay Packers. There is no greater cheat code in the NFL today than just doing more play action.
Why did you just say Green Bay Packers? Because Micah Parsons got traded there, or because Aaron Rodgers used to play for him? This is a very important question on the way out of here.
I don't know. I have a mental block right now. I don't know. I need to figure it out though.
It's awesome. I said something awful the other day.
I think it might be the yellow.
Yeah. Yeah. There's sometimes you just get it. You just get stuck. And it's one of those things where it's not even Freudian. It's like permanent, right? It's like,
I know.
The the thing that's really interesting about the pin and pull and the gap stuff is the tackles are so athletic, and Zach Frazier's a monster, right? So can Sayamalu do this, or is McCormick athletic enough to do that? Okay, we're starting to get answers to those questions. Before we go into a deep dive, and we can save some of this for the Sunday show and go a little bit further, the one thing that I'm giving them some grace on, and the thing that I'm actively as a fan, as someone who's wanting to really not just enjoy covering this team, but try to understand it, is from week to week, this offense is going to be different. What we need to see are them having the answers to the test. And that starts with figuring out, now that they've shown DK Metcalf in the slot, how they're going to answer that with Jonnu and Freiermuth. And then you build from there as Warren ramps up and Kenny Gainwell has shown you some things with Broderick Jones, with Fatanu, with the athleticism of those two magnified by Darnell Washington. If they can't do it with those guys and those traits and that size and skill together, then Artie Smith can't get it done.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is for an Aaron Rodgers OC, because I think the more you let him have his way, the less effective he is. He battled Mike McCarthy. He didn't get along with Robert Saleh. I don't know what was going on with the Jets offensive coaching, but they blew him out as well. Like, I really think this requires a GM and a head coach knowing that what your vision is, that we need to go get a Shanahan, McVay, O'Connell, maybe Johnson, Clayton Adams. We need one of the guys that fits there, and we need to tell whoever is listening, this is what we're doing. Your job is to play and execute the plays. And I don't know if Aaron Rodgers would want to come back for that. How much creative control, if you did decide, listen, we had all these players and all these plans and our offense sucked all year long, we're getting rid of Arthur Smith, you're kind of paralyzed. I think at that point, you kind of got to go with what Aaron Rodgers wants.
Well,
I don't think that's a good thing.
We're going to get an answer, because if they make a move and they give up capital to go get, the pipe dream one is Garrett Wilson. But if the Jets are shopping Breece Hall, don't tell me they won't take your call about 5. The same way, if the Dolphins are shopping Achane, don't tell me they won't listen about Waddle. And, Jacoby Myers and some of these other players, Ridley, that we talked about on the show the other day, they're nice. They're good. They're 1,000-yard guys. They're professional wide receivers. But if they make a move using some of the draft capital that they've been so precious about, and that signals round 2, because they actually go on a run and get close, and you can see the momentum and what's there, the meat on the bone for 2026, because the only other thing to do is to nuke it and start over and use that draft capital to move up at the fountain, around the point, and up and down the North Shore to go draft the next Ben Roethlisberger.
All righty, I'll drink to that. It is the weekend. Salute to everybody for making us part of your day. Our final approach to 4 figures and subs is here. If you like the show, please like the video. That helps our distribution. And if you want more Steelers content, 4 or 5 long-form shows a week, plus the curtain call shorts, hit that sub for us. We sure would appreciate it. We'll be back very soon with our Sunday show and all the relevant matchups and talking points here for Steelers-Browns. And I got it right this time. That's Steelers and Browns. From me, I'm Dawson. We'll see you next time on the Noll Road.